Welcome to ILTV's Israel Weekly. Our main topics today: controversial Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte arrives in Israel for a landmark visit, and the United States cuts all aid to the Palestinian aid organization UNRWA. Joining me in the studio are spokesperson of Gush Shalom, Adam Keller, Jerusalem City Council member and chairman of the Meuchadim Party, Aryeh King, and founder and executive director of Israel Institute for Strategic Studies, Dr. Martin Sherman. Thank you all very much for coming in.
Thank you.
All right. Now, so for our first topic, Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte is landing for a 3-day visit, making him the first Philippine president ever to officially come to Israel. Israel and the Philippines share an interesting history going all the way back to the Holocaust, but President Duterte's presence is still considered controversial to many. Aside from his harsh stance on drug abuse that has resulted in over 12,000 deaths and tens of thousands of arrests, Duterte has also made some startling comments that beg the question, why are we doing business with this man? Such comments include comparing himself to Hitler with respect to massacring drug abusers, and most recently that as long as beautiful women exist in the Philippines, so will rape.
Ingon sila nga daghang rape ang Davao. Basta daghang gwapa, daghang rape yun na. Kinsa ba'y unang mo sugot sa una? Sugot ng babae? Wasa. Ayaw, lagi, di, lagi. Wa may unang ni sugot, anang kuhan? Kana, rape na.
So, Adam, I'd like to actually begin with you. Should we be hosting Duterte?
No, I'm personally going to be on Tuesday morning at 9:30 in the morning, standing in front of the president's mansion in Jerusalem, holding a sign, "Murderer, you are not wanted in Israel." That is, I think that's clear enough. And the organization in which I'm involved has requested President Rivlin not to accept this bastard. I don't know how to call him. And unfortunately, we got the answer from the president that he's following, not having his own judgment on such things, but following the advice of the foreign ministry. And I'm very sorry because Rivlin is one of the most decent people in Israeli politics. I expected a little bit more of him. But anyway, I want to say that there is a total disproportion when I see all the fuss which is made about Jeremy Corbyn and all the ways that are digging into all kinds of expressions of Corbyn to find that he is an anti-Semite in this way or in that way. And then you invite somebody who has explicitly compared himself to Hitler, and then you invite him to Yad Vashem, and you also invite him to inaugurate a special Holocaust memorial in Rishon LeZion. I feel that of all the cynicism of this government, I don't expect anything of this government, but I find again and again that however bad I already saw Mr. Netanyahu and all his ministers, I find that they could go even deeper.
Let's bring it over here, Dr. Sherman.
Well, I must admit that, excuse me, that I don't really have strong feelings either way about this. I can understand the arguments on either side. On the one hand, the Philippine president has said some rather unsavory things and probably done some unsavory things. But politics is always very Machiavelli. You know, our relationship with the Philippines goes back, as you mentioned, to the Second World War. The Philippines made very significant efforts to save Jews, allowing them to escape from the Holocaust. The Philippines was the only Asian country to vote for the independence of Israel. Yeah. And whilst in objective terms there may be a big difference between Coburn and Duterte, Coburn is against Israel. He's said things against the Jews. He said things against Israel. You know, so we should. You know, it's not the same thing. Which side are you on? You know, the Philippine president, as I say, has done some rather unsavory things and said unsavory things, but he was voted in a democratic election by well ahead of any of these other rivals, and he's bringing with him a massive delegation of businessmen and security officials, which you know is a positive for Israel, the Israeli economy. I can understand the reticence and the aversion of meeting him. But as I said, politics in many ways is a Machiavellian discipline, and you know, you have to weigh the pros and cons.
So then, Aria, let's kind of continue with the follow-up with you. You know, do the pros outweigh the cons? Because here you have a guy who, we have a lot of Philippine workers who are here working in Israel, and actually even some Israelis working in the Philippines. We also have a lot of agriculture work that they want to do together, but the majority of his 400-person delegation, they're here for arms, and it's been made very clear that Duterte wants to arm the Philippines more heavily, and they see Israel as a gateway to that. You know, where are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that we need to look at Duterte as the president of a country, of a state. It's not a visit of him as a personal. And with his personality, I think there is agreement around this table that his personality is not our cup of tea. But he is presenting a nation, a country that was supporting the Jewish nation from before the establishment of the state and until today, even in the worst years, worst period in the international affairs for Israel, the Philippines were one of the countries that, in general, were supporting us. Now, the point is that he's coming, saying that his goal is to strengthen the connection between Israel and the Philippines is something that it's, even if we don't like him so much. By the way, I can tell you, I felt more or less the same with Trump. And I'm very favoring Trump, but as personality, I have also problem also with Trump. But look what happened. He was elected, and from my point of view, he's the best president, American president that we had in the last 20 or 30 years. His personality is maybe the worst one. But even so, saying that his personality is problematic, the political steps and the connection between Israel and the states, like Israel and the Philippines, are becoming stronger and stronger, and we cannot say no to a leader of a country, especially in this side of the world, in the globus, in Asia, that we can refuse his request to visit our country.
The Philippines is a country of over 100 million people, and he was democratically elected, as opposed to some other people.
Yes, I can imagine sometime in the 30s somebody in America or in Britain having a discussion and saying, now, you know, politics is a Machiavellian field, so this Mr. Hitler, now he's saying some unsavory things, and he's doing some unsavory things, but Germany is an important country, and we need to have good contact with Germany.
That's exactly what they did, by the way. That's exactly what they did.
Yeah, so maybe that's the point.
No, so I think that the Jews in the 30s were very much feeling hurt by people who took this Machiavellian realpolitik attitude and saying that we don't care about what Hitler is doing inside Germany, we don't care about what Hitler is doing to the Jews, we need good contact with Germany, so there it is.
But who is Duterte against? He's not against.
He's against his own people. He's against his own. He's a murderer. He's murdering people, his own people, in cold blood. And you don't care about it. I do care about it, and I
do care. I think everybody agrees.
So here's. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you mentioned again. You mentioned that this would be likely.
If Putin wanted to come to Israel. If Putin wanted to come to Israel, would we agree to him? Or Yasser Arafat, or even Erdogan? If Erdogan wanted to come to Israel, would we receive him?
I think by the way of all these people which you mentioned, the Duterte is by far the worst. I mean, I don't like Putin and I don't like Erdogan, but I think that neither of them is officially authorizing the police in this country to just kill people out of hand in the middle of the street, and neither one of them is officially authorizing his soldiers to commit rape against women and laughing about it. And I think of all, when I take the make some kind of spectrum. I think definitely Duterte is by far the worst of Putin and of Erdogan and of nearly anyone in the world, which I can see.
Maybe, Adam, I ask, maybe
Final comment?
the point that he's coming here, this is our way and your way to influence him. Maybe we can influence him in a positive way that you and me would agree.
I don't see that the government of Israel has any interest whatsoever to influence him and to make him stop what he's doing to his own people. I don't think that Netanyahu cares the least about Philippine police murdering people on the street in Manila.
I'm not sure.
I did not yet see from Netanyahu referring to it. Let's say the visit is now beginning. I would be extremely surprised if I hear Netanyahu making even a hint in this direction.
All right, so we'll have to pay attention to see if Netanyahu does
Anyway, as I said, I'm going to demonstrate against Duterte on Tuesday morning in front of the president's house, and I hope as many people will come as possible.
All right, well, we have to move on, unfortunately, to our next topic. So, the United States has recently announced the ending of all funding to the Palestinian refugee agency UNRWA. Prime Minister Netanyahu is praising the decision, saying that the money would be much better spent on organizations that already exist under the purview of the United Nations. But Palestinians, human rights organizations, and many others are now left wondering what will become of the hundreds of thousands of Palestinians that until now have been under UNRWA's care.
I suggest a gradual conversion of all funds going to UNRWA to other agencies that deal with the question of refugees and actually have criteria. This will not have negative effects. It will have positive effects because the perpetuation of the dream of bringing the descendants of refugees back to Jaffa is what sustains this conflict.
So now this is an American political decision added to their decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, move the embassy, consider settlements illegal, refuse the two-state solution 6-7. So actually this is the program and the agenda of Chilton Adelson and Benjamin Netanyahu. The United States may have the right to say we don't want to give taxpayers money, but who gave the U.S. the right to approve the stealing of my land, my future, my aspiration, my capital, my Aqsa Mosque, my Holy Sepulchre Church? They have no right whatsoever.
هذا القرار هو قرار لمنع فلسطين من عودة إلى ديارهم، وبذلك جعل مدينة القدس عاصمة لدولة إسرائيل وطلب أنه تبنى المستوطنات في الضفة الغربية. هذا هو عدم قرار لعدم حق العودة، ولكن حق العودة لا يحق لنا إلا بحاجة واحدة، بالكفاح المسلح.
So, Dr. Sherman, I'm going to start with you this time. You know, again, the big question is, what's next? What's going to happen next with all these people? Are we going to see more armed struggle like maybe what was just suggested? Are we going to see actual policy changes? If the UNHCR steps in and takes over, would that be the best case?
Well, let me say one thing. I think this step by the Americans is long overdue. In 2008, I gave a lecture in the Knesset to a select subcommittee in the Knesset, presenting exactly the same reasons that are being used now to prevent the funds to UNRWA. UNRWA is not a human rights organization. UNRWA is a political organization that uses human rights to promote its agenda. There is no reason for the existence of a separate organization to deal with the Palestinians other than to perpetuate the right of return. Now, if anyone supports the right of return, that means they support the destruction of Israel. And, you know, democracy is not a recipe for self-destruction. It's clear that that UNRWA must be completely dismantled. The treatment, if you feel that the world has a responsibility to treat generation after generation after generation of refugees, which are held as refugees because of their brethren in the Arab world, who refuse to give them citizenship in their countries of residence, or they've been resident there for decades and want to be residents there by all the polls that I've seen. Why should this be shouldered on the way? And by the way, this is discriminatory against any other refugees, because if you look at the investment per refugee in UNRWA, which deals exclusively with the Palestinian refugees, and the investment per refugee in the High Commission, which deals with all the other refugees on the face of the globe, it's almost double. Why? Why should it be that way? And the question, when you ask what should be, there's only one rational answer. They should either be settled in the countries of residence or in third-party countries who are prepared to take them. Because if you envisage these so-called refugees or descendants of refugees, millions and millions, being set up in what's supposed to be the Palestinian state in Judea and Samaria and Gaza, it would completely overwhelm the infrastructures there, which even now are not really functioning. So there is no other rational solution for these people other than the permanent settlement in their countries of residence at the moment, or in third-party countries that are prepared to take them, and the funds given to UNRWA could be diverted for those purposes.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I feel that all this hype about why is the refugee status of the Palestinians transmitted from generation to generation is the most brazen chutzpah which I could ever think of when it comes from a Zionist. Because what is the whole basis of Zionism is the assertion that all the Jews in the world are refugees who have been driven out of this country 2,000 years ago by the Roman legions, and that they preserve their refugee status even after 80 generations, that's more or less 2,000 years.
Well, but that's
that's total misrepresentation. That is a total misrepresentation.
That is the essence of Zionism. Zionism says...
Zionism was... But the country was purchased legally. There are documents
sorry, I don't want to discuss the whole of Zionism. I want to say...
That's a total misrepresentation.
The basis of Zionism is that the Jews have been driven out of this country 2,000 years ago by the Roman legions who destroyed the temple in Jerusalem, and the Jews have been living in exile since then, and wherever they live in the world where they are not in this country, they are in exile, and therefore they have the right of return, and that is enshrined in the Israeli law of return, which says that every Jew in the world has the right for automatic Israeli citizenship. So if you applied what you apply to UNRWA to the Israeli law of return, you should have said that the Israeli law of return should apply only to the Jews who personally were expelled from this country by the Roman legions and not to their descendants after 80 generations. So I think that Palestinians are not going to give up their basic identity. They are not going to give up their feeling that they are Palestinians and that they've been driven out of their homeland.
That's a total misrepresentation.
I hope that the European Union will compensate for this very stupid and irresponsible act of Trump.
I want to understand, are you for the right of return?
No.
Are you for the right of return?
You ask me. You ask me a question, let me answer. I am in favor of an Israeli-Palestinian peace in which Israel will give the Palestinians the right to create their own state in the West Bank. I don't accept the word Judea and Samaria, the West Bank and Gaza Strip. And the Palestinians will have then their own law of return, in which they could and infrastructure.
So you think that Judea and Samaria, which are the real names, do you think that they could sustain 5 million extra people?
I have an example of a country right here, which in 1948 had 600,000 inhabitants, and it absorbed millions of others.
You have an example of Gaza, which is.
I have an example of the state of Israel, which started with 600,000 inhabitants, which made a law of return and said that every Jew who has the right to come here, and very many came, and Israel absorbed them, and Palestine can do exactly the same.
I will answer you in a very clear way. First, you are, Adam, you're describing the history like I don't know why you are playing with the history.
I'm quoting Zionism.
I live in Mount Olive, Ras El Amud. My neighbors, for example, one of them, his name is Abu Saud. Ask him from where he came. He will tell you. I came from Misr, from Mitzrayim. I have another friend. His name. Adam.
Yeah.
I was silence, listening to what you say. So listen to what I have to say to you. There is no many Arabs that you can point that were living here 100 years ago. And the ones that came after 100 years ago, after the Zionist people came here and they came look for work, so don't tell me you compare them to the Jews that ran away 2,000 years and more. Now, regarding the UNRWA, you should know, UNRWA, and I'm visiting there, in Shuafat refugee, I see them, and in Kalandia, what they teach them there, it's not about peace. It's not about integrating to the modern Western social. Again, you're interfering. You see, why can't you?
They want to kill Jews.
What they teach them in school is there's no place, not to Adam to live in Tel Aviv, not to Shimon to live in Netanya. No Jews will live between Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. And you should not manipulate what you know, because you read their book, you see there's no place for Tel Aviv, not for Netanya, not to Jerusalem. For them, Palestine is without Jews and no Israeli, not even small Israel. Not in the small Israel that you think that could be in the time that will be a Palestinian state. I just want to finish saying one thing. Look, what is so sad is I live with Arabs. I meet Arabs more than Jews daily. And you know what?
Not very friendly.
Arabs, no, again, you are not saying the truth. Arabs are fed up from Israelis saying what's good for them. They want to put all of that in the back of their, history and to establish their new life, yes, in Israel, because they know Israel is a secure place, Western place where they can do whatever they want, and not you tell them what's good for them.
Are you giving them civil rights in Israel?
I will give to every Arab living in Israel civil rights. Yes, not like you.
In the West Bank. Ramallah,
exactly like Martin said,
Hebron, you are giving everybody the civil rights?
If you ask them, they need to be part of Jordan state in order to save the king.
So you said a minute ago that they want to be part of Israel.
Unfortunately, I have to end it here. I would really love to continue this conversation. It's, we're not going to solve it today, unfortunately, but thank you all so much for coming in.
Thank you.
That's our time for ILTV's Israel Weekly. Again, I'd like to thank our guests, Aryeh King, Dr. Martin Sherman, and Adam Keller. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. Remember to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News, and of course on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Aaron Porras. We'll see you next week.